What's good, everyone? It's your homie Hermit. We're back with another reaction. This time we have something special that I think the followers who are jumping over from TikTok are really going to enjoy. Over on TikTok, we've been embracing the Mexican culture, checking out its food, it's trying to learn the language, checking out the music. And I feel like another great step in doing that is to learn about the Aztec and their mythology and their history. I'm a huge history buff. My favorite era being the Viking era. Um, I love the Norse culture and the Norse mythology. I'm like 53% Swedish or something like that, so it's a vast majority of my culture. Um, if you can say white people have culture, but so yeah, I've written and published a book about the Norse mythology, so I absolutely love it, and I want to learn just as much about the Aztec history and mythology because it is fascinating from the little bit that I know. This video that we're going to be checking out is going to be their creation story. I was watching another video, but they were turning it into like a big joke, and I really didn't like that. I thought it was very disrespectful. So I'm gonna check this one out. Hopefully they don't make like everything into a joke because I just found that very distasteful.
Long ago, before even time had come to be, there was Ometeotl, the dual god. Ometeotl was made by the union of the god.
Yeah, they didn't even tell it. They didn't give me any of that information in the other one. So I feel like this one automatically is going to be 1,000 times better.
God. Ometeotl was made by the union of the god Tonecatecutli and the goddess Tonecacehuatl, the lord and lady of our sustenance. And so, Ometeotl was both one and two at the same time. The
Ometeotl. That's okay.
Came to be out of nothing, and for a time they were all that was in the whole of the universe, for nothing else had yet been made. Tonecatecutli and Tonecacehuatl had 4 children. There was Red Sipetotec, the flayed god of the seasons and the things that grow upon the earth. Black Tezcatlipoca, smoking mirror, god of the earth.
Okay.
White Quetzalcoatl, plumed serpent, god of air. And blue.
Quetzalcoatl is a god that I'm familiar with, I believe. I'm not sure if he's like it's a similar name or if he is a different god, but there is a like serpent god I'm familiar with. His name is Kukulkan, I believe. He's very cool from what I've seen him depicted as.
Cacehuatl had 4 children. There was Red Sipetotec, the flayed god of the seasons and the things that grow upon the earth. Black Tezcatlipoca, smoking mirror, god of the earth. White Quetzalcoatl, plumed serpent, god of air. And blue Huitzilopochtli, hummingbird of the south, god of war.
Okay.
The god children lived in the 13th heaven with their parents. Of these children, Tezcatlipoca was the most powerful. Together, the 4 children of the dual god decided that they would like to create a world and some people to live in it. It took them several tries before the world became the way we know it today, because the gods fought over who should be the sun and rule the earth. The first attempt at creation was made by Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli. First, they made a fire, which was the sun. But it wasn't big or strong enough to give much light or heat, as it was only half of a sun.
Okay.
After they made the sun, Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli made a man and a woman. They called the woman Oxomoco and the man Zipactonal. The gods told the man and the woman what work they were to do. The man was to be a farmer, while the woman's duty was to spin thread and weave cloth. The gods gave the woman the gift of maize. Some of the grains were magical and could cure illnesses or help foretell the future. Together, Oxomoco and Zipactonal had many children, who became the Masehuales, the farmers who worked the land.
Okay.
Even though there was already a half-sun, and even though there were already a man and woman, the gods had not yet created time. This they did by making days and months. Each month had 21 days, and when 18 months had gone by, this made 360 days, and that spanned the gods called a year. After there was a sun, a man and a woman, and time, the gods created the underworld, which was called Mictlan. Then Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli made two other gods to rule over this place. They were called Mictlan Tecuhtli and Mictlantecuhtli, the Lord and Lady of Mictlan.
Okay. Yeah, this is all awesome information. I've never heard any of these names. I don't know any of this stuff. So I am absolutely loving what we're learning right now.
Had 21 days, and when 18 months had gone by, this made 360 days, and that spanned the gods called a year. After there was a sun, a man and a woman, and time, the gods created the underworld, which was called Mictlan. Then Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli made two other gods to rule over this place. They were called Mictlan Tecuhtli and Mictlantecuhtli, the Lord and Lady of Mictlan. When all this was done, Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli created some water, and in it they placed a giant fish. The fish was called Cipactli, and the earth was made out of the body of the fish. Oxomoco and Cipactonal had a son named Piltzen Tecuhtli. The gods looked upon him and saw that he had no wife. At that time, there was a goddess of beauty and young women called Soki Quetzal, Flower Quetzal Feather. The gods took some of Soki Quetzal's hair, and from it they made a woman to be Piltzen Tecuhtli's wife. The gods looked at all the things they had created, and they were not satisfied with them, especially with the sun, which was too weak to give much light. Tezcatlipoca thought about how to make the old sun brighter, but then he thought of a better idea. He turned himself into the sun.
All that information, this past 3 minutes, was skipped in the last one. And this is when I thought the other video got disrespectful, because they said that he snatched the sun, wore it as a belt, and they made like jokes. They were like, well, someone had to be the sun. And it's like, dude, that just wasn't very tasteful to me.
And they were not satisfied with them, especially with the sun, which was too weak to give much light. Tezcatlipoca thought about how to make the old sun brighter, but then he thought of a better idea. He turned himself into the sun. This new sun was much better than the old one. It was a whole sun, and it gave enough light to the world the gods had made. This was the beginning of the first age of the world, the age of the first sun.
Okay.
The gods also wanted more beings in their new world. They made a race of giants who ate nothing but pine nuts. The giants were very large and very strong. So strong were these giants that they could uproot trees with their bare hands.
Very reminiscent of the Jotun from Norse mythology.
These giants that they could uproot trees with their bare hands. So, for a time, Tezcatlipoca shone brightly over the world the gods had made. But after this world had existed for 13 times 52 years, or 676 years, Quetzalcoatl thought his brother had reigned as the sun for long enough. He took his club and struck Tezcatlipoca with it, sending him plummeting down, down, down into the waters that encircled the world. Tezcatlipoca was very angry that Quetzalcoatl had done this. He rose up out of the water in the shape of a giant jaguar, and in this shape he roamed about the whole earth. The jaguar hunted all the giants and devoured every one of them.
Oh, wow.
Once all the giants had been eaten, Tezcatlipoca rose back up into the heavens, where he became the constellation Jaguar, Ursa Major.
Okay.
The second age of the world was the age of the second sun. This was the age of wind. Quetzalcoatl made this world, and Quetzalcoatl was the sun during this age. The Masahuales lived in this age eating nothing but pine nuts. The second age also lasted for 676 years, until Tezcatlipoca took his revenge on his brother. Tezcatlipoca came to the world in a blast of wind so great that Quetzalcoatl and the Masahuales were blown away, although some of the Masahuales escaped the blast. These turned into monkeys, and they ran away into the jungles to live.
Oh, okay.
After the time of the second sun was complete, the god of rain, whose name was Tlaloc, he who makes things sprout, became the sun and ruler of creation, and his age is the age of the third sun.
Okay.
This age lasted for 7 times 52 years, or 364 years. During this age, the people ate the seeds of a plant that grew in the water. But again, Quetzalcoatl destroyed this world. He brought down a rain made of fire, and all the people were turned into birds. After Quetzalcoatl,
So from all, it seems like from the failed worlds, they, instead of just like obliterating and destroying everything, like in the destruction of the world of wind, I think is what it was referred to. They, like, I think he meant to destroy everything, but monkeys were created. And in this one, I like how they didn't kill everything and birds were created.
he brought down a rain made of fire, and all the people were turned into birds. After Quetzalcoatl ended the reign of Tlaloc, he gave the world to Tlaloc's wife, Chalchiuhtlicue, Jade Skirt Woman, to rule. Chalchiuhtlicue was the goddess of rivers, streams, and all manner of waters. She was the sun for 6 times 52 years, or 312 years. This fourth sun age was a time of great rain. It rained so long and so hard that there was a great flood that covered the earth. The flood washed away the masehuales, turning them into fish.
Oh, wow.
After the flood was over, the sky fell down and covered the earth so that nothing could live on it. The gods looked upon the world they had made and saw how it had been destroyed by their quarreling. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca made peace with one another and went down to rebuild the world. The gods each went to one end of the world, where they transformed themselves into great trees. With their mighty tree limbs, they pushed the sky back up into its place, and they hold it there still. The gods...
So, Quetzalcoatl and I can't remember. Poke, I believe, was the name.
Gods looked upon the world they had made and saw how it had been destroyed by their quarreling. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca.
Tezcatlipoca. That I destroyed that name. I'm sorry. So they made peace, came down, and today they're the trees, I believe.
Made peace with one another and went down to rebuild the world. The gods each went to one end of the world, where they transformed themselves
all
into
the
great
gods.
trees. With their mighty tree limbs, they pushed the sky back up into its place, and they hold it there still. The god Tonacatecutli, the father of Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca, looked down and saw that the brothers had ceased their fighting and had worked together to mend what their anger had broken.
Oh, it was them.
Tonacatecutli, therefore...
Okay, I like that I got that clarification, that it was just those two that went down to the earth and became trees. I love that explanation for how trees were made.
Peace with one another and went down to rebuild the world. The gods each went to one end of the world, where they transformed themselves into great trees. With their mighty tree limbs, they pushed the sky back up into its place, and they hold it there still. The god Tonacatecutli, the father of Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca, looked down and saw that the brothers had ceased their fighting and had worked together to mend what their anger had broken. Tonacatecutli therefore gave the brothers the starry heavens to rule, and he made a highway of stars for them to use as they traveled. This highway is the Milky Way. Then the gods created new people to walk upon the earth. Once the sky had been put back in its place, Tezcatlipoca took flint and used it to make fires. These fires lit the world, for the old sun had been destroyed in the flood, and a new one had not yet been made. Also, there were no people, for the giants had all been devoured, and the people had all been turned into monkeys, birds, and fish. So, Tezcatlipoca met with his brothers to take counsel about what to do. Together, they decided that a new sun would have to be created. But this would be a new kind of sun, one that ate human hearts and drank human blood. Without sacrifices to feed it, this sun would cease to shine. and the
Okay.
world would return to darkness once more. So, the gods made 400 men and 5 women, and these were to be food for the new sun. Some say that Quetzalcoatl and Tlaloc each wanted their sons to become the 5th sun, and that these gods each took their sons to one of the great fires that had been kindled. Quetzalcoatl's son had been born without a mother. The god threw his son into the fire first, and he became the new sun. His son rose out of the fire and went into the sky, where he still is to this day.
Oh, wow.
Tlaloc waited until the fire had nearly burned itself out. He took his son, whose mother was Chalchiuhtlicue, and threw him into the glowing embers and ashes. Tlaloc's son rose out of the fire and went into the sky as the moon. Because Quetzalcoatl's son went into the blazing fire, he became a creature of fire and glows with a light that is too bright to look at. But because Tlaloc's son went into the embers and ashes, his light is dimmer and his face is splattered with ashes. And this is how night became divided from day,
I love this.
and why the moon and the sun crossed the sky in different ways and along different paths. But another tale tells how the sickly god Nanahuatzin willingly sacrificed himself to become the 5th sun. The gods had gathered at the great city of Teotihuacan to discuss how they might make a new sun to replace the old one that had been destroyed by the flood. One of them needed to jump into the bright bonfire and then rise into the sky. Nanahuatzin, god of disease, whose name means full of sores, came forward. "I will do this thing," he said, "even though my body is diseased and bent, and even though my skin is covered with leprosy." The other gods laughed at Nanahuatzin. They said, "You silly fellow, you are sickly and weak. You will not have the courage to jump into the fire. Let someone else become the sun." Then Tecuzistecatl, the one from the place of the conch, came forward. He was a most wealthy god, well made in his body and well dressed with all manner of gold and feather ornaments. "I will do this thing," he said, "for it would be better that a healthy god make this sacrifice than a sickly one." The other gods agreed that it should be so, and caused a great fire to be kindled. While this was being done, Tecuzistecatl and Nanahuatzin retired to places where they might fast and prepare offerings to purify themselves, so they would be worthy to become the new sun. Tecuzistecatl prepared offerings that were made of the finest things, of jade and quetzal feathers and balls of gold. Nanahuatzin's offerings were humble reeds and the spines of the maguey cactus. At the appointed time, Tecuzistecatl and the other gods gathered around the fire. The wealthy god, dressed in his best finery, strode up to the great blaze with its searing heat. He made as to throw himself in, but at the last minute he balked and walked away. Again, he tried, but he could not bring himself to jump into the flames.
He didn't have the courage.
He tried again, and yet again, but each time his courage failed him. After the 4th time, he walked away from the bonfire and from the other gods, ashamed that he had not been able to turn himself into the sun as he boasted he would do. The other gods wondered how they would make a new sun, since Tecuzistecatl had failed to jump into the fire. But all was not lost. Nanahuatzin had not forgotten his offer to become the new sun, and he had also fasted and purified himself so they might be a fitting sacrifice. The sickly god stepped forward, dressed in garments made of paper, and walked straight up to the raging fire. He stared into the heart of the blaze for just a moment, then threw himself into the very heart of the flames. Nanahuatzin's hair was ablaze. His clothing was ablaze. His skin crackled with the heat of the flames that licked all around his body. Tecuzistecatl saw the courage of the sickly Nanahuatzin and was deeply ashamed. So he also stepped forward and jumped into the flames with Nanahuatzin. An eagle and a jaguar had been watching the sacrifice too. They saw the courage of Nanahuatzin and Tecuzistecatl, and so they joined the gods, throwing themselves among the flames. This is why the eagle's feathers are tipped with black, and why the jaguar is covered with black spots. This is also why the Aztecs created the orders of the eagle and the jaguar to honor their bravest warriors.
Ooh,
After the eagle and
I knew about the jaguars. I didn't know why. So that is very cool to finally know why.
And was deeply ashamed. So He also stepped forward and jumped into the flames with Nanahuatzin. An eagle and a jaguar had been watching the sacrifice too. They saw the courage of Nanahuatzin and Tecuztecatl, and so they joined the gods, throwing themselves among the flames. This is why the eagle's feathers are tipped with black, and why the jaguar is covered with black spots. This is also why the Aztecs created the orders of the eagle and the jaguar to honor their bravest warriors. After the eagle and jaguar had thrown themselves into the fire, the other gods waited to see what would become of Nanahuatzin and Tecuztecatl. Slowly, light began to rim the world. The gods looked all around, wondering where the source of the light was. Then, suddenly, Nanahuatzin burst forth over the eastern horizon, covering the world with the brightest light. His sacrifice transformed him from the lowly, sickly leper god into a new sun god, Olin Tonatiuh, whose name means movement of the sun. But Tecuztecatl had also transformed by his sacrifice, and shortly after Nanahuatzin rose into the sky, so did Tecuztecatl. And now the gods had a new problem, for there was not one but two suns in the sky, and the light they made together was too bright for anyone to see anything.
I think that's really cool that in this mythology that at one point there were two suns, because how many galaxies have we been able to observe from at this point in history and see that they have two suns and we're the strange one with only one, you know?
So did Tecuztecatl. And now the gods had a new problem, for there was not one but two suns in the sky, and the light they made together was too bright for anyone to see anything. One of the gods snatched up a rabbit that was nearby and flung it into the face of Tecuztecatl. The rabbit hit Tecuztecatl so hard that his light was dimmed. That was how the moon was created, and the shape of a rabbit was now permanently marked on his face. Then the gods rejoiced.
Okay, so that's how in the fifth sun, that's how the sun and moon were created.
And the shape of a rabbit was now permanently marked on his face. Then the gods rejoiced, for now they had both a sun and a moon. But their joy was short-lived, for Tonatiuh refused to move from his place in the sky until all the gods had sacrificed themselves to him. The other gods grew angry and refused to do this thing. But Tonatiuh was steadfast. He would not move until he had drunk the blood of the other gods. Tlahuizcalpantecutli, Lord of Dawn, who is the morning star, said, "I will stop Tonatiuh. I will save you from having to be sacrificed." Tlahuizcalpantecutli threw a dart at Tonatiuh with all his might, but it missed. Tonatiuh threw a dart of his own back at the morning star, hitting him in the head. This changed Tlahuizcalpantecutli into Itztlacoliuhqui, curved obsidian, the god of coldness, frost, and obsidian. And this is why it is always cold right before the sun rises. The other gods realized they could no longer refuse what Tonatiuh demanded. They came before him with bare breasts, and Quetzalcoatl cut out their hearts with a sacrificial knife. Once the gods had been sacrificed, Quetzalcoatl took their clothing and ornaments and wrapped them into sacrificial bundles. These sacred bundles were then worshipped by the people.
Okay.
Sated with the blood of the gods, Tonatiuh began to move across the sky, and he has done so ever since. And this was the birth of the fifth sun, the sun under which all life lives to this day. But still, the people offer blood and hearts to the sun to ensure that he is satisfied and to keep him on his sacred path across the sky.
So, by the time the people, like the humans, were roaming this earth, or well, at least at this point, the gods, besides the sun god, were all dead. I didn't know that. And that's why they continued to do ritualistic sacrifices.
Sun, the sun under which all life lives to this day. But still, the people offer blood and hearts to the sun to ensure that he is satisfied and to keep him on his sacred path across the sky. Please note that there is no unitary Aztec creation myth, but rather several variant tales of how the world came to be.
That is also something you find in Norse mythology because they didn't have a written language. So everything was passed through word of mouth through a bunch, like 3 different countries. And by the time it was written, they had basically been died out, or like converted to Christianity. So like the myths, by the time they were recorded, they weren't entirely accurate anymore.
Path across the sky.
I really enjoyed watching this.
Please note that there is no unitary Aztec creation myth, but rather several variant tales of how the world came to be. In this video, we have covered one of the primary myths called the Legend of the Suns. If you want to discover another creation tale, as well as many more captivating Aztec myths, make sure to check out our new book, Aztec Mythology, Captivating Aztec Myths of Gods, Goddesses, and Legendary Creatures. Also, if you haven't already gotten your free mythology ebook bundle, grab
Yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna play their shout outs, I'm sorry. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching this one. I know it was different, but I feel like I've never seen someone reacting to like stories of the Aztec mythology and culture. I've seen people doing it with like Greek and Roman mythology. I've seen people doing it with Norse mythology, even Japanese mythology, but never the Aztec. So we got to make that different. We got to change that. I absolutely loved this video. If there's more legends that you would, or myths that you would like me to check out, I would love to check them out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed learning about the Legend of the Suns. This was very informative. A lot of new information that I didn't know. I like the names there. I know some of them, I was familiar with Quetzalcoatl. He was the only one I knew before going into this. So that was cool to learn about all these different gods. And I know it's going to take a little bit to actually remember their names, maybe multiple watches, but I really enjoyed watching this. Big shout out to all the Patreon supporters, everybody checking us out on live stream, and all the TikTok viewers. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan on putting clips of it over on TikTok. So I hope you enjoy that as well. We'll catch you at the next one. Everybody have an amazing rest of your day. Peace.